Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. And today, I wanted to talk about the most accurate clock in my house. And it doesn't even belong to me. It is this guy. This is the most accurate clock in my house. And I know you're saying, wait a second, that's not a clock. That looks like a video camera. Well, you're right. It is a video camera. It is, it's a Sony PXW-X400. And it's what they call an ENG camera for electronic news gathering. So yeah, big, nice, heavy camera. It's a HD camera. It's not 4K, but it's specifically designed for the current broadcast standards that we have here in the United States. So this will record up to HD resolution, also 720p resolution, depending on what your TV station is putting out. We record it with this. It also has a nice big beautiful lens. It's got big sensors in there, so it does really well in low light. It's a very versatile camera, a tough camera. So if you show up on the scene of a news event, you can very quickly dial it into the right setting for high light, low light, whatever you need. It also has connections all over it for whatever you might want to connect it to. So that becomes very important. So if you're doing, say, a live news broadcast and you need to connect this to some kind of microwave transmitter connection between where you are and the TV station, all those sorts of things, easily connected because it's got all that stuff on it. So not a cheap camera by any means. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the station where I work 5 days out of the week. And if I stop working there, I'll have to give it back to them. But why do I say it's the most accurate, it's the best clock I have around here? It's because without connecting to the internet to update the time, without connecting to some atomic time transmitter somewhere or Bluetooth, it really maintains amazingly accurate time over the weeks and months. So what I'm going to show you is, I had an assignment in Atlanta, Georgia, back in September. So when I was out there, I set the clock inside the camera to the local time. And then when I came back to Utah, I set it back to the local time. So that's about 4 months ago as I'm recording right now. When we had the switch from daylight saving time back to standard time, instead of resetting the clock, I was able to just reset the time zone on this camera. And so what I'm showing you is that in the time, this is 4 months plus a few days, between the last time I set the clock in this camera and when I just recorded this little piece of video, you can see that it's accurate to within just a fraction of a second, less than 1 second off. Now, depending on the source here, I tried it first by using an app on my phone that connects to the internet and time servers and tries to show me the most accurate time compared to what the camera was actually recording. You can see it's off a little bit. When I tried a different source, when I was showing what my computer was showing as far as the most accurate time connected to the time.gov website, when I showed that compared to what the camera was recording on its internal clock, you can see that it's amazingly accurate. In fact, if I slow it way down, it's like 1 or 2 frames off from being exactly the same as the atomic time readout was on my computer screen. I know there may be some latency issues. There may be some reason why the computer was not showing me the exact correct time. But then again, when I set the clock in the camera, it might not have been the exact correct time. It was within a second, and it's still within a second of the correct time. So that's why I'm so amazed by it. Now, when you have digital recording devices like this camera, or other camera, your digital camera, even your phone, audio recorders, those sorts of things, when you're recording digital media, then those files that come out of that recorder will have a timestamp on them from when that file was created. And so all of those devices have some sort of internal clock, and if they don't, they have some default thing that they just assign as, the time of day for when that file was created, right? So it's important for something like this video camera to have a clock with the date and the time, so that when the digital files are created, we have some record of when they were created. There's another reason why this camera needs a super accurate clock inside, and that's because of what we call time code. So again, I showed you time code just a moment ago. So on this camera right now, I have this camera set to the time of day within a few seconds of the correct time on this camera. And so when I bring that into the computer for editing, I can have it display the time code, and that is expressed in hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. So each frame has its own designated number, hours, minutes, seconds, and frame number. And your time code may be different. It may be set to something different depending on what format you're using, you prefer to use, for your recording. So in this case, I'm recording at 30 frames per second, or technically 29.97, but that's a whole different thing. So let's just say this is 30 frames per second. Also, the broadcast standard for the TV station where I work, 30 frames per second. So this camera is set for a 30 frame per second time code. You might be doing 24 frames per second for more of that film look, or 60 frames per second if it's a high action, or, there are all kinds of different time codes you could use, but kind of standardized for what I'm doing, it's going to be 30 frames per second. Now, let's say I want to record with 2 or more cameras at the same time. Then it would be advantageous of me to synchronize the time code in each camera. Now, I can do that by running a cable between the cameras. And maybe one of the cameras is the time code source, or maybe there's another time code source. Okay, and I run that into the camera, so they're all synchronized right down to the frame, 1/30th of a second or 1/60th of a second, or some minute fraction like that. So if they're all connected, hardwired together, and they're all recording with the same time code, then when it's time to put those recordings into the computer and edit between the different camera angles, they're all perfectly synchronized. And you may say, well, software these days can synchronize stuff even if the time code is not quite right. Yeah, you can, but if you're doing, dozens or hundreds of clips, you don't want to have to worry about synchronization on all of those. So if you can get the time code sorted out before you go, that's great. Also, you might have an external audio recorder. So maybe it's 3 cameras plus another audio recorder, plus how many other devices you might have that are involved in creating this media. If they can all be on the very same time code, perfectly synchronized throughout the day, then you're great when it comes to editing. So that's why you want a very super accurate internal clock in the camera. And when it synchronizes to time code, it will hold that synchronization, even if rather than running a hard wire between the cameras, maybe you synchronize once, say when you start the workday in the morning, then you undo the cables and have those cameras running independently as far as, where they're able to go, but still operating on the same time code. So that's kind of a long roundabout way of saying it's very important with these professional level cameras to have a very accurate clock, so that if you have to synchronize time code with another device, you're only doing it once a day. Maybe you'll do it every time, you take a break. So you do it in the morning, and then you take a lunch break, you come back, resynchronize all the cameras, and then keep going. But you want devices that are good enough to do that and hold synchronization. That's why it has such a great built-in internal clock. However, even knowing that that is an objective, I'm still amazed and surprised that in 4 months, that internal time code represented by the camera's internal clock is still basically exactly the same as where I set it, maybe only wrong by a fraction of a second, but definitely less than 1 second over the course of 4 months. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you know, this is my most accurate clock, and it doesn't even belong to me. And it is, again, doing that without any kind of time reference updating itself on a regular basis. It's just, I set the time, and then it just held that. So we'll see how long that'll go. It's kind of a little unnerving. It's like I want to reset the time in the camera, but I don't have to, so I won't. Anyway, yeah, for those of you who maybe work in the professional broadcast and film type world, maybe you've noticed something interesting like this. Tell us about it in the comments. Otherwise, I want you to come back, because I've got more episodes. In fact, I want to say there will always be another episode of the Good Timekeeping Show.